Hi friends, and welcome to week 2. We're going to be focusing today on calling, and we're going to jump right into it. You should have already downloaded your worksheets for week 2, so we can go ahead and get going. And I'm going to give you some highlights on each segment that we will cover over the course of the week. You'll notice on your very first page that I've put a paragraph there with some blank spaces for you to write in. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what those words are. And you're going to use this paragraph to help center you throughout the week in case you get really deep and confused and you need to just come back to the surface and get some sanity. So calling requires 2 actions. It requires hearing and speaking. Hearing and speaking. These 2 actions lead you to clarify your purpose to others and establish your brand. So purpose and brand. All of this together results in your calling. So this week we're going to be focusing on calling in a very creative way. We're going to be talking about it in terms of hearing, speaking. We're going to be talking about branding and messaging. All of these things combined really are going to help us answer that question that we have this week, which is what? Do you happen to remember what the question is? It's who am I? So we want to be able to say I am and then fill in the blanks. Well, let's go ahead and start talking about our first creative way of looking at calling. And that means that we're going to change it to the form of being called. Now, when you're called, what's really important is that you hear what you're being called to do. So we can look at being called in 2 different ways. First of all, we can look at it in terms of I'm being summoned. Someone is summoning me. You can also be called something or someone, so like a name or a brand. We want to associate these 2 different definitions with your calling because they're going to feed into that. And I'll give you a really practical example of how this works. So have you ever been outside of a conversation, you heard your name or you heard a subject that you were really interested in? Well, that caused you to hear, that caused you to tune in. Well, it's the same way when you're talking about your calling. Your purpose and what I call your purpose principles, those things that you identified that represent you, your internal why. Your internal why, your principles are always looking to be called. They're always listening and trying to tune in for the topics and the subjects that really align with who you are. So in order to figure out your calling, you really got to tune in to yourself and listen to what you're saying to yourself internally, and also getting some feedback from others about what they're saying and what they see about you happening out there in the world. So when you think about calling, another way to look at calling has to do with your brand. Now, if you've been in corporate America or you've worked for a company, chances are you've had an opportunity to attend a workshop where you've identified your brand. Well, there really is something to that because if you think about KFC, for example, and you hear the words, it's finger licking good, you automatically associate that message with Kentucky Fried Chicken. So they've done a really good job in establishing their brand. Or how about Just Do It? Who has created that? We know that Nike has. So you basically have the same thing going on with you. There's a message that you send out there to the world, and what people do is they look at that message and they associate it with you. Well, ultimately, they create different job titles for you. I call them job titles, but they associate you with a certain name. They associate a message with your name. And we want to get really clear on what this looks like and how this correlates to you. When we get to day 4 in this particular study, I'm going to ask you to start just being creative. And this is where we get off track because we get self-conscious and we don't want to sound silly, but I want to invite you to play and be playful with your titles. I give you the opportunity to think about what you speak and what you do. You know, what are some of those messages that come out from you? If you could create a title for some of the messages that you create, what would those titles be? And I listed some that I would say for myself, just to give you an example of the direction that we're going here. It's amazing how when you talk to someone outside of you, how they can look at your life from a whole different perspective. I remember one time I was having a rough patch, and I felt like inside I was just crumbling and melting. And I had someone else share with me, hey, you seem someone who is very well put together, very composed. You're the queen of composure. And I laughed so hard about that because inside I didn't feel like I was the queen of composure. I felt like I was the crumbler. So getting people's perspectives can be very valuable to you. So by the time you get to day 5, you will have processed a lot of information. Hopefully you will have spent a lot of time reflecting, talking to others, trying to put some things together and thinking about what your brand is and what are some of the messages that you typically speak and what is it that you feel like you're being summoned to. So day 5 is an opportunity in your worksheets to basically cause all of that to gel together and finally answer the question, who am I? So I'll give you the opportunity to take a crack at saying, I am, and then who. Now I do want to say, hey, if you don't figure it out, it's fine. It's fine. We are on an investigation. We are exploring. So even if you just go along this journey, we're picking up clues as we go, and by the end of our 5-week study together, you will have more clarity about the direction that you're heading. You'll have more clarity around your purpose, your calling, your mission, your destiny, and your gifts, and it's going to be exciting. All right, that's it for today. Get going on your studies, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.